This is Football 24/7 with John McMullen, and I am your humble host, Tone DeShields II. Before we get too deep into the content, make sure you guys smash that like button. It really helps the content grow. On top of that, make sure you guys comment below. And most importantly, make sure you guys are subscribed to the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. And if you also want to catch more content from John McMullen, if you want to catch his articles, make sure you guys are locked in on jakibsports.com. That's JAKIB sports.com. So let's get right into it. First things first, John, how are you feeling?
Doing well. Big day for the offense. Finally break through a little bit, start looking a little bit better. Big day for Jalen Hurts. Really hot from, kind of started feeling it in one-on-one drills between the receivers and defensive backs, was making a lot of nice throws. And that carried over into teamwork, which was more important. So, everybody was hot at the NovaCare complex today because it was, 92 degrees or whatever. But nobody was hotter than Jalen Hurts. He really, really, really performed well. And it was a very, very positive development tone because it was not good for the first 4 open practices. So little sigh of relief, at least for the short term.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It's interesting because today was the first day of full pads. Am I correct?
Yes. Full pads, 92 degrees, 90 plus minutes, longest practice as well, a little bit over an hour and a half. So, yeah, I thought the offense would start to look a little bit better once the pads came on because of the offensive line. But, hey, maybe Jalen Hurts needed the pads.
Well, it's interesting because that kind of lends to your point, right? That he's not a practice guy. He needs the full-fledged vibe of a game. He needs the pads. He needs the momentum. He needs all the energy that comes from live action, right? And it's interesting. I really want to pick your brain about what you said about Jalen Hurts. You said today was well. Let's just be honest. You said no one was hotter than Jalen Hurts, right? We know it was 92 degrees, but he must have been 100 degrees. So, can you expand on that? What was working for him today?
Like a street shooter in basketball, sometimes you got it. Shooters, sometimes they have it one day, they don't have it the next. And the great ones like Steph Curry have it very, very consistently. And that's what you're looking for with Jalen Hurts, is more consistency. But, a day like today proves he can do it. So I think that's a positive. Now you just got to be more consistent. You got to do it day in and day out, and that's the hard part. But number of nice deep throws. I mean, this team had trouble completing a pass over 10 yards for 3 consecutive practices, and all of a sudden they come out today and they're throwing the ball down the field and being successful. So it was an interesting 180 from the offense's perspective.
See, that intrigues me because this offense, for the most part, has been together, all last year. There aren't really too many new pieces except for AJ Brown. There's no way just adding one piece like AJ Brown should rock the boat that much.
No, yeah. Chemistry, it takes a little bit time, a little bit of time for the offense. The defense, if you think about just the nature of this game, is a reactionary position. So it's a little bit easier for the defense because they're reacting to what they're seeing from the offense. And, sometimes for a cornerback, for instance, it's as simple as, covering the guy in front of you. It's not a particular zone play. So offense is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more room for error. So, there's a lot. If you look around and read about some of the other training camps, you'll see some similar stories about offenses struggling and trying to ramp it up and trying to get things going. So um, the fact that the Eagles were able to do so, and by the way, the defense wasn't bad. Um, you know,
Hmm.
the play of the day was a deep ball to Jalen Reagor, and the second team defense was on the field, and it was Zach McPherson. Um, he was right there in coverage, but it was just a great throw, a great catch. And I know, yeah, people are going to get upset. It's not my fault. Jalen Reagor had a great catch. Um, got some first team reps because Quez Watkins had to leave with an illness, and he made the most of them. So, Zach Pascal remains out with his illness. So Jalen Reagor got some reps with the first team, and he performed well with them. Um, and the corners who I've been talking about, it was, bang, 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 3 consecutive reps in those one-on-ones. It was a deep shot to Devonta Smith, who beat James Bradberry. And Bradberry was right there. Just a perfect throw, a good route, had about a yard of separation, made the catch. It was Quez Watkins before he left on Avonte Maddox, just kind of shook him in the slot. Good throw. And then it was the best throw was A.J. Brown against Darius Slay. Jalen Hurts just put it in the bucket, man. It was one of those throws that was perfect. It was A.J. Brown was getting it, nobody else was getting it. And that was 3 consecutive reps. And you said to yourself, wow, this is different. And then it carried over in the team drill. So, the streak shooter was hot today. It's basically how you would describe it.
You mentioned Jalen hitting on a bunch of deep balls today, but I'm even more curious about the other throws that he had to make, right? And a guy like Jalen Hurts, I got to be honest, me personally, I don't think we've ever seen Jalen Hurts get hot in a football game from a throwing perspective. I just don't think we've seen that. I mean, if we have, correct me if I'm wrong, but what specifically, I know you said the deep ball, but what were some of your favorite throws by Jalen Hurts today? I know you said the drop in the bucket to AJ Brown and Jalen Reagor, but were there any intermediate or short throws that required a little bit more precision?
Yeah, a couple times for the second straight day, hit A.J. Brown in stride over the middle. So that enables A.J. to get those yak yards after the catch. Very powerful, obviously, runner. So that has been a positive. The offense is way too heavy. A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, I started to talk about that. Other people are picking up on it. Not that they're bad players, they're very good players, but to the point where you have Devonta Smith and you say, well, when is Devonta getting the football? I mean,
I was going to
Devonta's
ask
not,
you about that.
yeah, he's not getting the football. And that's a concern. But that's more of a coaching concern than anything else. They got to work other people into this game planning. Right now, it's not game planning, but sort of practice plan, and get more people involved. So that's a bit of an issue, but you're right. I mean, the Eagles have Jalen Hurts is not the type of quarterback that's going to throw for 400 yards. Can he do it? Probably not in a live, um, in an actual football game. But when you see him make throws like he made today, it gives you a little bit more confidence that
It's encouraging.
when coupled with the other stuff he does well, the +1 in the running game, it can make a big difference.
I want to touch on Jalen Reagor a little bit. Today was, some people say, his best day of any training camp they've seen. You know, I
Well,
don't
that's
really.
not true.
Right. I don't want to jump off a cliff, but
Yeah, Jalen has made, and you could go on YouTube right now and watch the one-handed catches he made last year,
yeah.
which were Odell Beckham like. Jalen has a lot of talent. That's why it's so frustrating that he hasn't performed anywhere near that talent level. But no, this is not even close to his best training camp practice. That's the problem. I predicted before this camp that Jalen Reagor would have a very good camp for the mere reason that he was going to be getting most of his reps against the second and third team corners. And those guys can't stick with Jalen Reagor. And the first couple of days, that was kind of showing up. And then he started getting some more first team reps, and Bradberry quickly took him out of stuff. And it's a whole different ball game when it's James Bradberry and Darius Slay, versus Zach McPherson and Mac McCain. It's a whole different ball game.
Right. So a guy like Jalen Reagor, with this talent he has, I have to ask, because Quez Watkins went down today. He had an illness from what I heard, and I have to ask you this question, John. If Jalen Reagor can find a way to maximize this talent, maximize his opportunities in Philadelphia right now, is there an opportunity for him to overtake that number 3 spot from Quez Watkins? And I also have to ask you this: who do you think is the more fundamentally sound, maybe the more talented wide receiver?
More talented? It's not even close. It's Jalen Reagor.
Really?
Yeah. Just from a pure talent perspective. I mean, Jalen was a first round pick in the draft, and for all the revisionist history, it's not like the Eagles reached by taking him. Other teams liked him as well and graded him as a first round pick back. People in New Orleans say that the Saints were going to take him, I believe, at 24 if the Eagles didn't take him. And that's a very good organization with a very good head coach at the time, offensive head coach, Sean Payton. He liked him. So there's kind of this revisionist history that Jalen Reagor doesn't have talent. I mean, Quez Watkins is a 6th round pick. I mean, nice story, nice development, but
He's
those
overachieved.
he's overachieved. Those two aren't on the same level when it comes just to pure football talent. And that's why, again, there's a little bit of frustration, not a little bit, a lot, and rightfully so. And it kind of tells you what. Now, look, at some point, pedigree goes into the rear view mirror as well, because Jason Kelsey was a 6th round pick, and he's might go to the Hall of Fame. I don't think Quez Watkins is going to be a Hall of Fame receiver, but at some point we may be saying different things. I talk about player development being real, and guys like Marcus Epps is taking control of that safety job. TJ Edwards is just a different player now than when he came into this league. And those guys have worked hard. They both worked hard on their bodies. They look completely different. And they're better football players. So, you can get better. But as far as baseline talent, I mean, Jalen Reagor's tremendously talented. And every once in a while you see it. You saw it today. You see it with the one-handed catches. Even last year, you saw it with the 40-yard kickoff return, the 30-yard punt return. You see the explosion every once in a while. But he's a player that has lost his confidence. he pays too much attention to social media. Brandon Graham said this today. If you can't handle social media, and Brandon was talking about players, specifically Miles and Jalen, get off it. Get off it. People were vicious to Brandon Graham in his first couple of years.
Yeah.
If you don't have the maturity, and you use that word, if you don't have the maturity to handle it, you got to get off it. And Jalen Reagor, that would probably be a good first step for him, to be honest.
Completely understood. So at what point does the organization step in? I mean, you have a guy that you have on your roster, a guy that you've invested a lot in the first round pick, and you're still trying to figure out if he can even play in this league. But he's still so concerned about what people are saying or not saying on social media. How do you curb that? Like at what point does the team step in, or do they not step in?
No, I'm sure they told Jalen this numerous times, and but you can't do, when people leave the facility. I mean, they have their own lives.
They're adults.
Can't. Yeah, they are adults, and even though they're very young adults, they're adults.
Yeah,
and you give people advice, and you do the best you can, and sometimes they don't take it.
This is Football 24/7 with John McMullen, and I'm your humble host, Tone DeShields II. Make sure you guys are smashing that like button. It really helps the content grow. Make sure you guys are commenting in the live chat, and if you're watching this after the fact, make sure you guys comment below as well. We read all those and we check those out. All your support really helps, and most importantly, make sure you're subscribed to the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel, and check us out on JAKIBSports.com. That's JAKIB.com. Now, John, I want to stick on the offense a little longer. Hurts said something really interesting in his press conference today, and he said, we're not necessarily scheming for our defense. We're just running plays. Can you expand on that? Because, I've always thought when these guys are in training camp, or when they're just going against each other, right? The offensive ones versus the defensive ones, I've always thought that they're at least trying to challenge each other from a scheming perspective, right? Because I mean, they all know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and I feel like the best way to improve is to go against your own guys and go against the guys that know you the best, right? Know your tendencies, know your habits, know what you're likely to do, knows your skill set, right? So, what was your thoughts when Jalen indicated that they're not necessarily scheming for the defense; they're just running plays and trying things?
No, yeah, you don't. I mean, they're not going to scheme for anybody until Detroit. No preseason. You don't scheme for those particular teams. Yeah, you just sharpen what you do.
So really quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt, but so how do you spot flaws in your system? How do you spot flaws in your scheme if you're not necessarily throwing it against what you had?
Well, because if you want to run something and Jalen Hurts isn't comfortable with, as he mentioned today as well, or the coaching staff figures out this didn't work, you might scrap it, you might put something in. But as far as game playing, Jim Schwartz used to always say, and it always stuck with me, the off season, the OTAs is for teaching. Training camp is for evaluation. And then the regular season is about game planning for the next opponent, period. There's a little bit of wiggle room to that. The first couple days of training camp, you're still teaching a little bit, but for the most part, you're evaluating what you have. And that's not only the players, that's the scheme as well. But as far as, game planning for Jordan Davis or Fletcher Cox or Davion Taylor or TJ Edwards or James Bradberry, it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you when the season starts. I mean, you're not playing your defense. So you're trying to get better. You're trying to run what you think you're going to be successful with, and you're trying to get as perfect as possible with that kind of stuff. And then it just becomes, well, it's good football player against good football player in theory, and you're going to make each other better. Iron sharpens iron, the old cliche in football. But that's every team. I mean, nobody's game planning or trying to take advantage of the weaknesses of their own defense. They're just trying to get better and get prepared for the regular season.
All right. So you mentioned iron sharpens iron. I want to touch on the competition between these wide receivers and these cornerbacks. You know, AJ Brown and Darius Slay, all these guys, James Bradberry, Devonta Smith, these guys have been going at it. And I'm curious to know what you've been seeing. What's your evaluation of the competition level? And have these guys been? Have you noticeably been seeing these guys take their game to another level based off who they line up against?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about Bradberry today. Somebody asked me today who the best player in camp was, and I started thinking about it. I'm like, I'm thinking, I'm James Bradberry. James Bradberry.
Really? I mean, that has to be encouraging, right, for the Eagles fans?
I would think so. To have those two corners, and maybe it doesn't hold up, but this is a former Pro Bowl corner. I mentioned when he got beat deep by Devonta Smith, even when he gets beat, he's right there. Had to be a perfect throw in one-on-ones. And then, oh, by the way, the next two, he got up in press coverage on Devonta Smith. He didn't get off the line of scrimmage, Tone. He got both hands on Devonta Smith, and he was going nowhere. He just pressed him and just completely threw him off his route.
But that'll only make Devonta better.
Yeah, in theory. And that's what we're talking about, players against players. But Bradberry has been tremendous. I don't think he's going to be the best player on the Eagles, but for these 5 practices, he's been the best player out there. So, and we'll see how it continues, and hopefully he plays at the level he did in 2020 with the Giants, and all of a sudden you got 2 Pro Bowl level cornerbacks, and that's pretty good.
Absolutely. Moving to the defense side of the ball, a guy that hasn't really been talked about that much, in my opinion, and maybe I've missed it, but a guy that I feel like that's been flying under the radar is Josh Sweat. What's been your evaluation of Josh Sweat? And also just what's been your evaluation of how this defensive line has been working with Tracy Rocker? Tracy Rocker had a lot of great things to say about Jordan Davis, had a lot of great things to say about Fletch and Javon. So first, what's been your personal evaluation, your observation of Josh Sweat? And then please get into Tracy Rocker's defensive line.
It's a really good defensive line. That Jordan Davis pick enables them to be a little bit more versatile. Josh Sweat, yeah, you're right. He's one of those guys. He's a good player. He might not be a great player, but he's a good player. People kind of overlook him a lot. I think.
He's a quiet guy.
He is. Likes to giggle a lot as well when he giggles a lot, but he's I always joke that if you're making a movie in Hollywood and you wanted to cast a edge rusher, you're going to cast Josh Sweat, because he looks like an edge rusher. He's long, he's got this tremendous length. People who don't know, Josh was the top recruit in the country coming out of high school, number 1. And he tore up his knee and dislocated his kneecap and tore all the ligaments, devastating injury. Went to Florida State, so he still had his, still had a scholarship, but it took him a while to get back from that injury. And people kind of forgot about him. People kind of forgot about him, but he's always, that 6'5", 270-pound guy who just looks like an edge rusher. And he had 7.5 sacks last year. I think he'll get double digits this year, but we'll see.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because I feel he underachieved. Like, I mean, some people say different, but me personally, I believe Josh Sweat.
Depends where, I don't know. Underachieve is a tough word. I mean, that's his first year. Really wasn't a starter. His first year as.
That's true. That's true. He's been a rotational guy for the most part.
Yeah. And this will be his first year as the de facto starter on the edge. Ahead of Derek Barnett, which Eagle fans will be thrilled by. And, 4th round pick depends. Are we talking about the number 1 high school recruit in the country, or are we talking about a 4th round pick? It's probably somewhere in between, but I think Hassan Reddick's presence and Jordan Davis will help make him a better player.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned he's been considered to be the de facto number 1. He's been on the first team. This training camp, and BG mentioned in his press conference that he's actually taking second team reps, which is interesting to me. I mean, it's not necessarily a surprise because of his age and the fact that he's bouncing back off that injury and how much depth we have at that edge position now. With Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett, you got Milton Williams, who's kind of a tweener. Then you got Hassan Reddick. I'm curious to know what your observation is of BG and how he's been responding to training camp. Bouncing back from that torn Achilles.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting for the Eagles but first we have to see, if BG is BG, so to speak. He's 34. He's coming off an Achilles injury. Father Time gets us all at some point. And I don't know if he's going to be the same player. If he is the same player, I don't know how they keep him off the field. No offense to Josh Sweat, who we just talked about, or even Hassan Reddick. They're not Brandon Graham at his peak. So it's going to be interesting that if he's still the same guy, how do you keep him off the field? I don't know. Now you can do some other things because he's very versatile. So you can move him inside. You can play 4-eye technique. You can take, but then you're taking Fletcher or Javon off the field. So
right.
It's a nice problem to have. Although when coaches say that, and Jalen Hurts kind of went through this. People asked him, is Devonta jealous because he's not getting the ball and you're best friends with AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts?
I didn't like that question, honestly. Yeah. When I heard it, it was kind of like
yeah, and he completely shrugged it off, as he should have. But it's tough for good players to accept lesser roles when they know they're good players. And let's see how that shakes out. But, that good problem to have that coaches talk about, it's usually not a good problem. It's usually a pain in the ass, to be honest, because.
Well, I mean, BG's been open to it, he says.
Yeah, he says it, but he's never done it before. He's never been asked to play. And Brandon's he's been the guy with Fletcher Cox. I mean, those guys are out there. And I've talked to a lot of offensive coaches over the years, and they all say, we got to block 91 and 55. That's who, when we talked about game planning, that's who the opposition game planned for. Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham on the Eagles defense. At some point, everybody's got to take a step back, but sometimes it's not easy to do that.
Understood. We're going to begin to close the show out. I have two final points to hit with you. Now, I want to get into who were some of your standouts, right? And some guys who maybe didn't stand out. Basically, to you, whose stock is rising and whose stock is dropping?
Well, I said one. Defensively, a lot of guys. Bradberry up, TJ Edwards up, Davion Taylor up, Marcus Epps up. A lot of good defensive players early in camp. Offensively, um, I Kenny Gainwell, people are skipping steps with him. Today I say it all the time. I mean, Miles is so far ahead of Kenny Gainwell as a runner. Today, the Eagles, offense won the day. Probably for the first time, because if you talk to most reporters, they'll tell you the Eagles won the first day offensively, but I don't think they did. It was just all red zone work, so people see touchdowns and they go, "Oh, they scored a touchdown." But overall, the defense played better in those types of situations. So this was the first time that the offense won the day, so to speak. But they ran one period of goal line, and the defense completely dominated.
Wow.
Completely dominated. And they tried two running plays with Kenny Gainwell as the goal line back, and he got stuffed both times. Now, I'm not saying we need Jordan Howard but the Eagles might start thinking about getting a bigger back. If they don't think Miles can do it, or let Boston Scott do it, Kenny got completely stuffed on both opportunities. So I would say him, Devonta Smith, but not because of anything Devonta is doing wrong. They just aren't throwing him the football. I don't understand it, but they're just not throwing him the football. So from that perspective, I would say maybe those guys have taken a little bit of a step back in camp. Offensively, to Isaac Seumalo, who's completely already won the right guard. So we were all talking about that all day. That's going to be the big spot. Nope, not at all. Completely slammed the door. He's the right guard. So I would say he is a guy who's taken a big step forward. And then, the big story, Jalen Hurts. Here's how so we're at 5 days. I would say good, really bad, nondescript, really good. That's your 5 days with Jalen Hurts.
Okay. All right. So he's so far, based off today, trending in the right direction. So my final point to hit with you, John. Can you give us any updates on the injury report? I know you mentioned Zach Pascal, Quez Watkins went down with the illness, but any more updates on the injury front, and then we'll close out the show.
Yeah, Andre Dillard left practice today. We still don't know the injury, but he did leave practice. Quez actually returned on the field to watch the end of practice, so that's positive. Zach Pascal again watched practice, so in theory he's getting closer. Mac McCain missed practice, and Greg Ward. Mac was a knee injury. He had been taking second team reps at corner opposite Zach McPherson, so that's probably a little bit bigger than people realize. Greg Ward had a toe injury. He was out there watching practice as well, so it can't be too serious. But those were the two guys new to the injury report. And all right, just got a little bit word. Practice getting moved up to 9. Not sure of that yet. But anyway, I was hoping that was an Andre Dillard injury update. It was not. So Andre left practice, and we'll see how that shakes out.
Okay. So Eagles fans, you guys heard it here first. If you guys need any more updates in regarding your Philadelphia Eagles, any sort of news, any rumors, any sort of insight that you want in your Philadelphia Eagles, John McMullen has you guys covered. Make sure you guys lock in on JAKIBsports.com. That's JAKIB Sports.com. John is giving you all your report cards from the latest Eagles training camp. We are now on day 5. Day 6 is fast approaching. But you guys, you were tuned into Football 24/7 with John McMullen. I'm your humble host, Tone DeShields II. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys comment below. And most importantly, make sure you guys are subscribed. Stay humble, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay hungry. One love, you guys, and fly Eagles fly.